it seemed like everybody was getting attention and I wasn't. And it was a lot of times the people that were working there were saying like, oh, he doesn't need it, like his parents will just help him. He doesn't need to go to the track in the team sprinter, even though it's just sitting here and the other riders are using it because his parents supply him with a van. At one point I sat my parents down and I was like, hey guys, like you guys have to just let me do this on my own, and I'm gonna tell everybody that you guys completely stop supporting me. I'm gonna make you guys look like the bad guys, and I'm gonna do this on my own. And they're like, okay, we understand. So my dad gave me an old work van that he had that would barely run, and yeah, I just started milking it. First memories of a dirt bike were just riding around in the backyard on a PW50, and my dad had a leash connected to the back fender of it because I would hold it wide open and crash. But it goes back as far as I can remember. I remember being on a dirt bike. It didn't matter what it was, if it was my dad's dirt bike or anything. That's pretty much my earliest memories, just involve dirt bikes, whether I'm riding them or not. That's pretty much my life. Got really serious into it probably when I was about 5 years old, I would say, even though it seems crazy, but we did like a Gold Cup series, I think, when I was 5, and I took it serious. I know my dad did, and we kind of made bets with each other that if I had won the series, we would start going to the Spring Nationals, and I won the series, we went to the Spring Nationals, and then ever since then it was, we raced at a national level. We never really cared about the series and local races ever again. It was more or less full amateur effort at that point. I rode a Cobra 50. I don't think I ever got picked up by Cobra, but I think we had a little bit of support. And then KTM was making a real big push. They just started that Orange Brigade whole amateur program. So my last, 6 months on a 50 or a year, we did the testing and development on the new KTM 50. So I rode that. The few last months I was on a 50 and won like a championship at Arizona Open, which was like, at the time, I thought I was, the king. And then I think I was 9 years old, just got out 50s, and I was signed with the Orange Brigade thing at the time, and I did pretty good. I was really young for the class because the class was 9 to 11, and I think got like 5th or something at Loretta's, and that was kind of the time we had heard stuff about Cowie. I know my parents told me a little bit that they were looking at me, and yeah, I think I just did pretty good and ended up getting on Team Green, which was super awesome because I really looked up to kids like Adam Cincerillo and Blake Green, Zach Bell. Those kids were all on Team Green at the time. So I took it serious, and I think it really helped my career go into there because I just felt like at that point I was obligated to win, and I did whatever it took. I was on Team Green for 4 years, I believe. I won my first year on it, and then second year got second or third at Loretta. So first 2 years were really good. I had a 2-year deal, and then we re-signed. And then had some ups and downs that year. I ended up getting super hurt a lot. I did like my spleen, and for some reason just had like a string of injuries that year. Didn't do very good at Loretta's. I ended up having to race with like a broken wrist or something. So it was a really up and down year. And then towards the end of that year, I went to Monster Cup in Mini-O's, and I raced Monster Cup as a 12-year-old, which was like the youngest kid to ever race it, and got 4th overall, 3rd in moto. So that was like super awesome, kind of got my year going for leading into the next year. Then from there, went to Mini-O's, won 2 championships. So I kind of found myself back up top, and kind of just carried into the next year. I won a lot that next year. Pretty much every race I went to, I did really good. So yeah, I was super happy to be on Team Green. And then the last year at Loretta's on Team Green was 2015. I won the championship there and got third in the other class. And that's when Honda kind of approached me, and yeah, it was kind of, we just weighed out the contracts. There was kind of, probably took about a month to get everything finalized, but rode their bike and everything, and then ended up going to Honda. Honda was kind of coming and trying to bring back their amateur side. They had an A and a B rider, but they were kind of trying to bring back their mini bike rider with the 150. They were really pushing that hard. I know there was a lot of kids kind of in the running to get the ride, but I just come off of a great performance at Loretta's, so I was kind of at the top of their list. Pro circuit contract that I had was a 3-year deal, and then there was like a renegotiation point after that to maybe go 2 more years. And Geico was just a straight across 6-year deal at the time. I did like that. I did lose a little bit of money going to Geico just because Monster paid a little bit on the pro circuit side. But yeah, it was a hard decision for sure. My parents really just sat me down and highlighted all the areas on both contracts, made me read it over. And it was tough because at the time I was staying with Mitch a lot and in his guest house or his apartment, and you know, my dad was always over there drinking and having barbecues and stuff with him, so it was kind of like I was part of the family. So it was definitely a tough decision. At the time it felt right to go with Geico, and you know, I just had to go with my gut, and I went for it. I think a week or 2 into riding the 150, I broke my femur and my arm, and then got back from that in like 9 weeks. Rode the bike again for like a month or so, broke my wrist. So it was like kind of just like a never-ending string of injuries. And then also like they were changing the bike so much. Like we were trying to go from a carbureted bike to a fuel-injected bike. So every time I rode the bike, it was completely different. A few times I'd show up to a race and he'd be like, hey, we found like 3 horsepower last night, so go try it. And then I'm like riding in the pits on the way to practice before the moto. I'm like, dude, Jesus, this thing's insane. Rode the 150 and I did really good on it like the whole like last year, and I think I broke my arms like 2 more times even. So it was like, yeah, it was never ending. I was always riding hurt. I raced Loretta's, I won a moto, got I think a 2nd or 3rd overall. So it wasn't a bad week. After that, we got ready for Monster Cup, which was supposed to be my last race on the 150. I was ripping. Like that was probably the fastest I'd ever rode on a Super Mini. Like I felt really confident and was riding super, super good. I rode at 395. There's like a track that's right by my track. I rode outdoors for like a few hours, and then it's close to my track, so my dad's like, hey, like a new Supercross track just got built. I'm gonna go up there, you wanna come? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I just stayed in my gear, and then when we got there, I unloaded and went to go ride. And one of the jumps, it was like a triple and then a double after, and when I landed the triple and I went to give it gas for the double, it was like in neutral. So I don't know if my foot bumped it or it was just in false neutral, but endoed and then broke my collarbone. And I just remember being like devastated, like going to the hospital, and they wouldn't do surgery on it because I knew I still had like 2 weeks before Monster Cup, and I knew that people have raced with collarbones that had just got surgery on it. So like I was completely devastated. Went there, they wouldn't do surgery, and I remember walking to the van after like them telling me like, yeah, you just have to wait it out. And I was like, I should just run and jump into the curb right now and just break it, because then they have to do surgery. Like I was so invested in winning that race, like especially with being my last mini bike race. But yeah, I just sat there and watched that race. I was so bummed, like so bummed. And remember I went and watched, I think the Craigs took me, and the team was like, oh yeah, like, that was a pretty good race, what'd you think? And I was like, I think I would have smoked those guys. And they're like, really? Like, you think? Like, we were thinking maybe you'd like top 3. And I was just like, ugh. So then I just basically just hung out in a sling for a few weeks, and then once that collarbone healed, they had a 250 ready for me to ride, and that was pretty much the end of my mini bike career. Leading into probably my last year amateurs, it was kind of crazy because we had me, Jet Lawrence, and Shimoda, and then Hunter Yoder in the B class. It was tough because when the Australians came over, they kind of stole the limelight in a way because, you know, they're the new riders. I was on the team for 3 or 4 years at that point, and so you have these 2 new kids that come over, and then me and the kid battle for wins. Every day I went to the track, I had to drive my own van, and they drove like the team equipment. You know, we were always kind of like, what's going on? You know, they always told us like I was supposed to go pro, and then it was like towards the end it was okay, all of a sudden they're going pro before me, so then I had to stay back and do a whole nother year amateur. If we asked for something, it wouldn't really get done, and if they asked for something, it was kind of getting done. It sucks to say it, but it's just kind of how it was. There's kind of some people over there that weren't that good. I raced Mammoth and Loretta's as an A rider because I was hurt for Freestone, but I did decent at Mammoth, seconds, I think. I think Jet won one, I got second in that class, and then we both didn't do that good in the 450 class. But it was good, I won a moto, like just me and him battled. And then we left to go for Loretta's like 3-4 weeks early to go ride some outdoor stuff, just like in the heat. And we're like in Arizona driving, we just left, and we get a call that they lost my suspension setting. And the bikes that they had given me had like the wrong suspension, but they couldn't find, it was just crazy. So I ended up racing with, I think, Shimoda's rear shock and my fork is what they narrowed it down to. So obviously that doesn't work, but yeah, going back to, I told my mom, like, I don't think I can top 10 this race. And you know, I already was 2 Loretta championships deep. I had like 5/3, 5 seconds. Like, I show up to Loretta's every year expecting like to win, and I put my best foot forward. But that year I was like, I really have no idea where I'm gonna stack up. I've done no motos. I've crashed every day I've rode. So she was kind of freaking out, and I was like, listen, like, I'm just gonna do my best. Like, is what it is. And ended up getting second in Open Pro Sport, and I think 5th in the other class. Did pretty okay at Loretta's, especially under the circumstances. I was happy with it. And they were like, hey, you rode great. Jet and Joe are both going to ride Unadilla. You should just, your bike's already on the truck, you wanna go race it? And I was like, I mean, my bike's like, it's nowhere near good. Like I don't know, like, and they're like, I think you'll do good. So I was like, all right, I've never done a 30-minute moto, and I did like 3 to get ready for this race. And I just winged it. I went and parked at a buddy's house in North Carolina. I did one 30-minute moto to see how it was, showed up at the race, qualified good, got 16th in the first moto and 20th the second moto for something overall. Just stuff that I wish I had more figured out, and maybe I should have asked more questions, but I don't know, I was just a young, dumb kid that kind of maybe thought that people would do their jobs maybe a little bit better, or maybe I was expecting too much. But looking back, it was crazy, like so many crazy times. It seemed like everybody was getting attention and I wasn't. And it was a lot of times the people that were working there were saying like, oh, he doesn't need it, like his parents will just help him. He doesn't need to go to the track in the team sprinter, even though it's just sitting here. and the other riders are using it because his parents supply him with a van. At one point I sat my parents down and I was like, hey guys, like, you guys have to just let me do this on my own, and I'm gonna tell everybody that you guys completely stop supporting me. I'm gonna make you guys look like the bad guys, and I'm gonna do this on my own. And they're like, okay, we understand. So my dad gave me an old work van that he had that would barely run, and yeah, I just started milking it. Like, I go to the track in that pile van that would barely run, it'd break down all the time. The mechanics started asking like, why do you have that? And I'd just be like, oh, like, I got nothing, like, you know, I have nothing, is what I would say. Like, this is all I got, man. And so then they started helping me. They'd bring my bike to the track in the team stuff, and, you know, the mechanics and the people that work down there stopped talking, you know, kind of crap about me, saying that I had all this, and I was kind of just, you know, I was just, I don't know, too lucky, I guess. But yeah, it was crazy. Like, my van was breaking down, like, on the way to the tracks, and I would just call the night before, hey, can I take the team sprinter? And they're like, don't you have a van? I'm like, hey, dude, it broke down last night. Like, so I can't ride tomorrow. And they'd be like, okay, yeah, you can use it. And it's just like, it was just blowing my mind that anytime those other kids needed it, they were getting it. It seemed in my eyes. So it was tough. It was super tough in a lot of ways to just be like, okay, like, I'm just gonna make it look like I have nothing to get something. I had to ride like the amateur setting all the way until 3 weeks till outdoors. Even though the schedule was announced and we knew we were going, they were like really, for some reason, like trying to hold me back from getting on the pro bike. Like, it was like, what are we doing? Like, all these other guys are getting ready for outdoors on their pro bikes, and I'm riding my amateur bike still. Like, there would be days I go to the track, and when Christian was done riding, he would let me ride his bike just to ride it. And I was on the team, like, it didn't make any sense. But yeah, like 3 weeks before, they're like, hey, here's like a pro bike, we got you all dialed. I'd been doing a lot of motos before because I had nothing else to do. Like, I was going to Glen Helen, showing up at 4 o'clock and doing 240s in a day, just because I was like, I'm just gonna get good at doing long motos. And then finally they gave me a new pro bike with everything on it, the same as everybody else. And they didn't really know what suspension setting to give me, so they started me off on Craig's suspension, and I ended up not liking it. So we tested for 2 weeks, found the best setting that we had, and then went right into racing. The day before the Paula National was the last round, on Friday, I went and watched the amateur racing the day before just to see the track and whatever, see some family, friends, and was driving home, and, you know, Jeff called me and he was like, hey man, like, he's crying, and he's like, I hate to tell you this, but, you know, the teams, it's no longer gonna be a thing. Jet and Hunter are going factory Honda. They both have jobs there, but yeah, sorry, you're fired. And I was just like, oh, all right. You know, it was like, I mean, you kind of, it was always in the back of your mind that could happen, but, you know, you thought that, you know, they would just figure something out, but they didn't, you know. I asked a few questions like, hey, like, you know, what do we do about these 2 years left that I have? And they're like, yeah, I mean, it just says in your contract if we lose the title sponsor and blah, 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 that, you know, it's over. I'm just like, all right, well, I'll see you tomorrow, you know. I'll see you at the race tomorrow. Then we got to the track the next day. The riders all knew, but the mechanics didn't. So they brought everybody in for a team meeting in the semi. And they just told us that, hey, like, Geico's done. you know, like, that's it. Like, this is it. This is our last race, you know, like, I hope you guys all find jobs. And it sucked because it was like all the bosses were crying. About half of the mechanics were crying, having like mental breakdowns, because it's like, okay, now I'm forced to find a job. Most of them have families and kids, and I'm forced to find a job in such a short amount of time. Like, how am I gonna pay my bills? Like, this isn't what I need to be involved in right now 20 minutes before our first practice. Like, I was in my gear, eating breakfast, like about to go on the spin bike. So I listened, and you know, everybody kind of gave each other hugs and was like, hey, like, let's get it going. And it was like half of the team was like, all right, let's make it this our last day, let's kill it. And there was half the team that was like so mopey and couldn't stop crying all day. So it was like, guys, like, I still have a job to do. Whether or not I have a job, I still am gonna go do it. And so I basically just went and sat at the factory Honda tent, the hospitality tent, by myself all day, because I just couldn't do it. Like, it was just bringing me down. I walk in the semi, put my helmet on, and like people were crying still and like giving me hugs, like, go ride, buddy. And I'm just like, dude, like, get away from me. Like, I gotta do a job. There was 2 laps left in the race, and it was like I was in 8th, and I was having a really good race. Like, I passed a lot of really good guys, and I had a really good moto, and my pit board said like, thanks Geico on it on the last lap. And I was just like that was the only time I ever cried, like, was the last lap of the moto, because I was just like, this is it. Like, this is your last race on this thing, you know. So that was tough. And then obviously every camera guy, media guy wants to interview you right after, because they know that's the last Geico race and they want to know how you're feeling. And I was just like, it sucks. Like, there's nothing really to say. And since we had 6 riders on the team, with 2 going to Honda, there still left 4 and all the staff that had no jobs. So it was like mayhem in the pits, because, you know, every single rider was going to every single semi and saying, hey, like, this is what I'll do for you. I'll ride for cheaper than that guy. Like, I'll do this, like, whatever it takes. I was just driving down to Mitch's office every 3 days I'd be down there. And I would walk in, I'd grab a broom, I'd start sweeping the whole shop until an hour went by, and then all of a sudden Mitch would just roll by me and be like, hey, what are you doing here? I'm like, I gotta get a job somewhere, right? Like, you need a broom boy? Hire a broom boy. And then I'd have a meeting with him, and I would just say like whatever it takes. What are the list of riders that you're looking at? Where am I at on the list? How do I get to the top of the list? Like, what are you expecting from me? Like, anything I could ask. I was trying to be super grown up about it. Kind of like talked him into letting me ride on the bike, and he did like a tryout basically. It was me, Master Pool, Harrison, and Shimoda, and we all got to go ride it at K2 test track. It went really good, but I rode the Penrite Honda bike a week before, and I crashed first day in Supercross and broke my hand and my thumb. So, and I just had to keep it quiet, because it's like, I need a job. Like, no one's gonna hire a guy with a cast on his hand. Like, it just is what it is. I'll deal with this down the road. So I just acted like nothing happened and just rode in super bad amount of pain. And yeah, I just did what I could. And I actually ended up doing really good at the tryout from what I thought. I rode my best, and they said that, you know, they just were looking for a guy that maybe had a little bit more Supercross experience, because, you know, Joe had a full year on it last year. I rode Michael's bike one day, and the bike that I rode at Chaparral was pretty close to the Geico bike right off the bat. And they were kind of telling me like, hey, like, we're gonna put a lot of effort into this. If you're into it, like, we can get Honda support. You know, the bike's gonna be a lot better. We're gonna be just, you know, working our butts off. I was like, okay. Kind of just same thing, just didn't have that many options, but just, you know, weighed him out as much as I could. And one of the mechanics from Geico, he was Jeremy Martin's mechanic, but then was the engine builder for the last 2 years. His name is Richard Sterling. He came with me, so it really just was a nice, smooth transition into this team and being on the same bike, and it kind of felt at home. And, you know, I had him in my corner always, which was nice. Yeah, there's a lot of riders that I would love to beat, and obviously everybody wants to beat everybody, but definitely coming in this year with something to prove. A lot of people it feels like they wrote me off in a way, like I know a lot of riders are calling a lot of teams, and it was sometimes hard for me to get a hold of them. So, and people don't forget, so I'm definitely gonna remember that when when I'm winning. I'm gonna do everything I can this year to just do my best, and I know my team's really working their butts off, so I'm definitely excited. I normally do good under pressure. There's just people that always write you off, and it's nice to prove people wrong, but I've got to do it for myself, and yeah, I just love to win, and I feel like this is just home for me.